Started. So I say, welcome back to Talk of the Town. I'm your main host, Tree Richardson, aka Reek, and I've been on this YouTube not too long. I've been active, but I'm glad I'm back. And here I'm with my guest, Renee Washington from Philly. She is alumni of LaSalle University and Lehigh, as well as being an All-American soccer player as well, 3 time. And I have her here, and she worked at various networks such as Washington Commanders reporter. She worked currently with ESPN Plus. She is an analyst for the Gotham FC, and a writer for BET. She in the past. But that being said, how you doing, Renee? How you doing?
I am good. Thank you for the great intro. Happy to be here. How are you?
Doing great. It's a nice day though. 75 degrees. Now it's actually 80, so now I'm just really fine with that. Doing pretty
I
fine. But the
know.
first one, I'm gonna just like get into it right off the bat is just how were you able to get involved in sports media? Just what was the main purpose behind it?
Well, for me, sports have always been near and dear to my heart. Growing up as a soccer player, it was really important for me to find a career that I felt like aligned with who I was. And that was something involving sports. I studied public relations. My minor was in Spanish and psychology. My master's degree was in educational leadership. But as I was going through the public relations field and all my internships and experiences, I was just kind of pulling things that I liked and things that I didn't like. And for me, I enjoyed storytelling, content creating, having conversations like this, and ultimately, of course, being involved in sports. And so it was just very important for me to continue pursuing what I enjoyed doing and going, down the track of finding a career that I felt like best aligned with me, finding a career that allowed me to do what I love and making sure, as cliche as it is, that like work is something I can enjoy doing every single day. And I didn't actually even know about sports reporting, to be honest, when I was first getting started. I feel like it wasn't something that you saw as much or heard as much about as a career option. But eventually just kind of made that leap of faith and pursued what I thought would make me happiest. And it's a struggle every day, but here we are.
That's actually a lot of words, actually. The way I got into it was just kind of weird. So first, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then as like high school kept going on, I had this one teacher. He kind of kept saying to me that I always kept talking about sports around him every time. I actually updated it. In fact, every time I walked into his class, he told me that what's the update on the sports? Like I need the information, what's going on
Mm-hmm.
right now. And which actually he told me like if you want like minor in sports, then go do it. So I kind of thought about it. All of my parents and so I kept talking about a lot of sports. Actually, I'll say my pops put me onto it because like he mainly talked about sports a lot with me. Like every time he would tell me about the history of sports. What's
Mm-hmm.
the current team? This, that, and the third. He's a Dallas fan actually. I used to, but
Oh,
but I did was that I switched, made some moves. I kind of had I kind of traded myself to the hometown team to the Jets. I kind of switched it because hometown team, and plus it broke my heart too many times. So I said, you know what, can't do it, Jets. So that's where he at right now. But at Bloomfield, despite the small school it is, I was able to do a lot of stuff there. I currently do reporting. I do a lot
mm-hmm.
of behind the work scenes. Now, I
I love
haven't
that.
been working there as of recently because of the latest schoolwork that I got, just especially down the stretch. I mean, I have like so many final projects. In fact, some of the people on campus, they actually tell me that I always see you running around the school and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm busy all the time. Like I'm mainly running around one building, then I'm running to the other building, then I'm running to the third building, then I'm running back, then I got to run all the way back
Jeez.
to the gym to do all the other stuff. In fact, I actually had contact, which I could send you later on after the podcast episode, is that we did a reporter like we did like we did more of like a broadcast, and it was for
Mm-hmm.
the men's team. They had Division 2 national tournament, and we had it there, and me, Gladstone Harris, and another associate of mine, we all helped develop that. And I was actually speaking on it. And when I show you it, you're gonna really like it. I'm not gonna really spoil it like that.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I know. But the other question I do have for you is just what was the hiring process for ESPN? Just what was like the main hiring process? Because there is just like some things on ESPN that some people view like how they get in, how once you do, how you may secure that role, especially with all the talented broadcasts that got let go over the past few years. So just how were you able to get into ESPN currently? Like how?
Yeah, I think. the biggest thing I always try to tell people in this industry, in order to get to any whatever your goals are, whatever that network looks like, whether it's an ESPN, an NBC, getting into Yahoo, Amazon Prime, there's so many new ones that are even emerging as great opportunities. It's really important to one, network, having conversations with people, getting a chance to get your name out there, get your work out there, but also it's just genuinely networking. It's not networking for any reason of, looking for a handout or trying to um, force opportunities. You almost have to allow it to unfold. So I always tell people plant those seeds early, have conversations with various people, various backgrounds, various ages, various networks. And then as you're building that village and that network, now when an opportunity does open up in the future, you might be someone that they think of, someone that they, have in mind that would be a good fit for that, that show, that broadcast, whatever it may be. But then also it's just finding ways to continue to perfect your craft, because as you're networking and on one side you're getting your work out there, on the other side you do want to also make sure that your work looks good. You're constantly finding ways to figure out and hone in on what your personality is on air, what you bring to a broadcast or a game or show, how you can add. Don't just be a carbon copy of someone else. I think unfortunately so many people just try to fit what they think they're supposed to do. No, find your own way of weaving in like your personality within how you're reporting and how you're broadcasting, because then it's going to be more genuine and authentic, and it's going to connect better with an audience. So on one side it's building your network, but on the other side it's building your craft. And as you marry the two and continue to do that consistently, you'll find those opportunities will start to kind of open up a little bit more for you.
I could really just see that with that. So the moment you got into ESPN now before I just go in more details, it's true that you work for you do the analyst and reporter for ESPN Plus, correct? Right? I don't want to be wrong on that. That's true.
No, no, you were correct. Yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
I work with various networks. ESPN is one of them. So I do sideline reporting. I'm an analyst. I do play by play. I do every sport, honestly. Obviously, soccer is the one I played. So definitely do a lot of men's and women's soccer, but also do football, basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, swimming and diving, you name it. I've been a part of a number of different ESPN broadcasts. But then also with CBS Sports and Paramount Plus, I've done NWSL coverage. I've done coverage in New York with MSG Network. So it's been various networks. And then most importantly, what I do every day is my work with PHOI Sports out of Philly, where I host a show for the Phillies and the Philadelphia Union and the MLS. So honestly, it's just working in a lot of different areas, wearing different hats. And so that's something that I feel like has helped me. I always try to tell people it doesn't just happen by just waiting. Even this is not an industry of just waiting and hoping that that job opens up on Indeed, or hoping that, you're going to put your name out there at a job fair. You have to constantly be planting those seeds to allow your work to just get out there, promoting yourself, sharing your work. Social media is a great way to do that. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. Continue to find ways to share the work that you're doing. And then also, as I mentioned, refining your work too as you're progressing and growing, so that now you can you got to stay relevant is essentially what it is. Like, you have to be someone that's on people's minds, that they know you can talk about that sport, that league, that team. But yeah, that's one of my many hats that I do wear.
And I know for a fact that you enjoy working at ESPN. Just what is just the work life at ESPN? Just what is the work life there?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different for me because I'm not in Bristol, Connecticut. I'm not someone that's on SportsCenter or anything. But for me,
Oh,
being a part of the ESPN broadcast on the regional side within college sports is a little bit different than most, because no 2 days are the same. I always tell people that. I think there's a misunderstanding, to be honest, about how the industry works. There's a lot of people out here like myself where, one day I might be doing a doubleheader. The next day I might be doing a live show. The next day I might be doing a pregame show and a postgame show. So because I don't just work with ESPN and do so many different networks, every day is literally different for me, depending on the schedule, depending on what time of year it is. Is it baseball season? Is it football season? Is it basketball season? Are we in March Madness? I was just doing shows with the Atlantic 10 for March Madness. Like, everything is just completely different. But I think that's one of the biggest things personally that I enjoy, that I say is a positive of, for me, having routine, but also having spontaneity, in a sense of literally no 2 days ever really being the same for work for me.
I respect that. And because me personally, with my craft, is that when I first started at my school, it was kind of new to me because I kind of thought that my biggest takeaway is that sideline reporting is not that easy as a lot of people make it seems to be. Because I thought I had that mindset when I did it first, and then it kind of hit me right. Actually, it's funny. So like it kind of hit me on day one when I thought that he would have it written out for me, and then he said, "Oh no, you got to have your stuff written out for yourself." And that's when my head told me that. Oh.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Welcome, welcome,
A lot
welcome
of people
to
assume
welcome.
sideline reporting is just you ask a question, it's just 30 seconds. It is high pressure, it is intense. You have to figure out there's layers to it. One of the most difficult parts of it is the fact that you're not like I've done work as a play-by-play color commentator and analyst where you're on the entire broadcast. So let's say I stumble on something or I don't get to that fact or that quote that I wanted to get to. That's fine. I've got time. I'm on the entire game. Sideline reporting is so quick. You have seconds to get in and get out, deliver it, be calm, be poised. It's of course very loud because unlike the analysts who usually have a headset on, you typically just have an IFB in, which means you're just listening similar to an AirPod with one earbud in, where you're listening to about three or four different people talking behind the scenes, on top of all the noise happening in the arena or stadium, on top of the fact you are talking to someone most of the time. So you have to be able to listen and engage with them, and you are juggling dozens and dozens and honestly sometimes hundreds and thousands of voices at one time, but having to still remain poised to deliver and answer and interact and smile and ask a question. But then also trying to find something you can add to the broadcast. You want to add, I can't go on as a sideline reporter and say the same thing everybody else has been hearing and seeing already. I have to add something different. What's an injury update? What's going on behind the scenes? What's coach saying? What's going on in that last timeout? So it is when anytime I do sideline reporting, I get my steps in. I'm up and down the sideline. I'm running around. I don't really ever sit down. And it feels like you have all this time and you don't, because from one hit to the next, you are just constantly moving and it's absolute chaos. So I know people have, and I've always chuckle when I see on social media people kind of saying like the sideline reporter is not necessary. Oh, it's a lot more difficult than it seems. You're not just there to
Mm,
ask generic questions. There's a lot that goes into the prep and even just how you're presenting and how you're on camera and how you're behind the scenes grabbing nuggets of information. So yes, I'm not surprised that it caught you by surprise.
yeah, and then another thing that I had an issue with was just pronouncing words. Like it was kind of an issue I still kind of still have even in 2024. Now, as the season went on, it was kind of rough because I did it at the other side of the court at my school because at Bloomfield our court is small. It's a lot of people there, but it's small, and I do enjoy that a lot. But as the season going on, I started getting more comfortable with it. I started doing it in the middle of the court. Now, in the women's game, a lot of people come to that, but the men's game everybody's there. Like you get cops that are there, you get students, you get alumni. I mean, even our president of Bloomfield College, she even goes to the game. So it's big. And the first time that I did like center stage, it was the women's one. I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't scared. I was kind of in the middle of the pack. I was like in the middle. The men's game, I literally pulled like an Eminem in the beginning. Like I literally did that. It was just bad. Like it was bad. But I started getting more comfortable with it. Now there was some mishaps I did have, such as there was one time that we did a game and I recorded it during the middle of the broadcast. And what happened was, unknown to me, I walked off in the middle of the section and it was still recorded. And then he told me that, hey, we were still recording. Now my head saying, dang it, it's still recording. I did not know that at that time. And I also did halftime as well at times. And there's also some things out of my control. So one of them was in the CACC championship. We were supposed to do the halftime. And they had like a whole professional crew out. And also they had the fact that the court we was at, and it was up in Caldwell, the Wi-Fi was terrible. Like I mean, like it was probably the worst Wi-Fi I ever experienced. Like it was so bad that you had to go outside to the cafeteria just to use the internet. That's how bad it was. In the gym, it was virtually impossible to use this. So I really couldn't even contact. I mean, it was so bad to the point which I like glad like the guy I was working with, he was sitting on the left side of where like all the other media people was. I couldn't literally text him. Literally, and then I go outside during the third quarter, like second half. He tells me that, hey, you're supposed to record and this, that, and third. And I tell him, wait a minute, I'm just now getting the message. I couldn't see anything because everything in the gym was terrible. Like the internet was terrible. But overall, I started to get adjusted to it, started to get a little better with it. And that's what I really enjoyed with it. Now, there was another mishap I did have was when the men's team was about to leave for the tournament, and I mispronounced two words in the final part, and I couldn't get the last script in for that. And I wrote it myself. And I was kind of like pissed off myself because we wrote it the whole week, like the whole spring break. I worked on it with a classmate. We was there all spring break in the morning to afternoon. And then comes Friday, I messed up on two scripts and I can't get it in because it was raining. And I got pissed off. Like I was literally angry because I was in my head saying, all that hard work for what? Just for that? It's kind of like football, for example. Like the quarterback, he does an amazing drive, and then his defense sells them immediately the moment they get on the field, and then the quarterback's on the sideline like this. Really? After all that, and you're telling me the defense can't even stop a nosebleed, make that out of here with that mess. But those are a women's coach that I knew personally, and he said, "Tell me, don't worry about it, kid. You got this. We all make mistakes, but you're gonna get better as time goes on and on and on." But he just took me under his wing and just talked to me about it, and I was a little better after that. And I did do the women's game, which like the softball, which I did enjoy that a lot, but really want to get that men's tournament though. It would have been nice on my reel, but I can't get that unfortunately though. So that's one thing I gotta look back and like say, what if I had that? But enough for just the professional one. Now we're gonna get to the sports now. So it was came out
I just
though. Which
can I add something really quickly though, just to
yeah,
your
sure.
point,
Yes, sure.
before we move on. I will say the biggest thing that I learned is we all have those moments. Like as you're talking through it, you were triggering about a dozen examples that I've had on my own experience, I should say, in my own experience that were the same. Like it's part of the process. And so one thing that I did learn is you have to learn how to roll with the punches. You know, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, always. So I've learned, okay, let me make sure beforehand, because I've had that same issue too. And it's not just a Wi Fi issue. Sometimes I've had where I hit a dead spot. I can't even hear the producer. They're trying to talk to me. I hear nothing. And I have to know my cues of when to get in and get out, but there's nobody talking to me. I can't hear them counting down. I can't hear them. So I've had to learn, okay, beforehand, making sure I have the full rundown, forward, backwards. You know, let's go over it a few times. So I know exactly, God forbid something does go wrong. I know I'm coming in end of the first quarter or end of the half, you know, start of the first of the game. And, you know, so I know exactly when I'm coming in. But then also just like over preparing allows you to feel comfortable that whatever is thrown your way, you can roll with it because the beauty about it is nobody on the outside ever really knows. People watching a game on ESPN or NBC or whatever network, they don't really, most of the time, you can't really tell the blunders. It's us because we are perfectionists and we know, man, I prepped, as you talked about, I prepped so long for that. It did not go the way I planned. I'm frustrated. And that's annoying. But it's also part of the reality of like, you are live. There are no do overs. And you have to be comfortable with letting it go, making the next one better, and knowing that, okay, I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then the last thing I learned is your stage is going to, and your audience is going to continue to grow. So to be honest, like some of the mistakes, and I still make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And I think that even helps in the broadcast to give that relatability of I'm not a robot. This is not pre-recorded. I am human. I might stumble or mispronounce a name and I have to professionally roll with it on the fly without it causing me to just, you know, veer off and go left. But part of the good thing about where you're at, and I always tell people this, when you're first getting started, I know it's very frustrating when you have those moments, but to be honest, this is the time to make those mistakes. It's like when you're younger, you make the football analogy, when you're younger playing pee wee football or youth sport, and you're learning, you're making mistakes, you're getting it out the way. By the time you get to high school to college, you've refined your skills. You're not making those same mistakes you were making when you were younger. The stage is bigger, you're more prepared, and you're better at your job, at your position. It's the same thing in reporting. Like I now have hundreds of people, thousands of people that might be watching me. So I'm on a bigger stage. I can't afford to make those same mistakes I used to make. But I now have also had a chance to work through those mistakes in a space where it was like when I first started local news, local sports, I may have had like, I don't know how many people were watching, not nearly as many people that see me now on air. So this is exactly part of the journey of like in those early stages. I'm not saying you just ignore the mistakes. You learn through the mistakes, but understand this is the time to make them because there's going to be a time where you are, and I'm manifesting this for you and for anybody listening. You're on a bigger stage. You're on that national, international broadcast. You're on that NBA show, NFL show, WNBA show, March Madness, whatever it is, and you have, I mean, we just saw Iowa against South Carolina average 18 point something million people. That's a huge stage on average that are watching. You make that mistake, that's a lot of people watching, but you'll be more prepared for that because you'll have had the chance to make those exact same blunders that you're talking about. So it's all par for the course. We all have gone through it. You learn through it, you grow through it, and it just allows you to now feel more comfortable when you do get into a bigger stage, knowing like been there, done that. I remember when I had Wi-Fi issues. I remember when I had a script issue. I remember when I had, I was at mid court and I was nervous. And now that's nothing. It's, been there, done that. So you'll be fine. Just keep going and just keep knowing that as you make these different, or have these different experiences, excuse me, you're getting better prepared for like what your future jobs and opportunities will hold.
I do appreciate that a lot. I really do. And I know that it's different from my reporting compared to you because my reporting is just we got a small gym at Bloomfield. We only do home games. We
And
don't
that's
go
where
on
I
the road.
started.
Yeah, we don't go on the road. I know
Mm-hmm.
you, especially you at ESPN Plus, Paramount, CBS Plus, all that. You're at these higher. You're at Division One, in which the crowds are way more bigger,
Mm-hmm.
and we got more fans that are even bigger, and
Mm-hmm.
the atmosphere is absolutely crazy. So like, you really can't mess up because one
Right.
mistake, it's like
But
football
that's
or like it's like football or basketball or soccer. You make one
right.
mistake, you're gonna be on the bench for God knows how long, and you're gonna be the biggest joke across social media and
But you
all that.
won't be. You won't
Yeah,
be
that's
because
the thing.
you
Yeah, that's the thing. You
might in
can't.
that moment, I think human nature is we naturally are frustrated with ourselves because we're perfectionists and we
Hmm.
know what our intention was. What did I meant to say this or I wanted to do this and I didn't do it. And most times the way that I plan out a show or a hit doesn't go as planned. Like something is always different. And that's part of it. It's live. It's chaos. Nobody can fully prepare for what being a reporter entails. You have to be able to just roll with it and go with it. And so I remember when I started out doing high school sports, division 2 and 3 sports, I was in a much smaller gym, much smaller crowd, or local sports, whatever it was. And it really does help prepare you for that national, regional, national level that now you feel more comfortable. So I always tell people like you have to be comfortable learning with it and also taking it in stride. Like don't let it discourage you. If anything, it's the opposite. It's motivation because you know where you want to one day get.
Yeah, by far. But besides that, now we get to the meat and the potatoes of it. Sports. We all love it. I eat, breathe, and live it. The first topic is regarding UConn yesterday. They repeat as national champions. And I heard some people, they're saying that they're now official a basketball powerhouse, in which I kind of find it insane because UConn been a powerhouse for God knows how long. So I just want to know what was your just key takeaways on UConn beating Purdue yesterday to win back to back? Just your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, for UConn to win and also to have in the course of their journey to a championship, you win every single game by 13 plus points. They're building something beautiful there, and it's
Yes.
exciting to see, and it's fun. It's fun to watch. I mean, listen, I wish the Purdue UConn game was closer. It was pretty much over early, but I do want you have to give credit where credit is due, and UConn has really risen as the top program in men's basketball. And I think for both the men's and women's championships, we got some really great storylines. We got some great players that we got to watch, and it's fun to see because now you're that much more invested when you see these storylines, UConn building a dynasty back to back. Now you're wondering, can they do it 3 times in a row? Is this going to continue? Are they going to be able to run it back? That's hard to do.
Yeah,
But I just think it was very historic and iconic, and it was a great ending to a fun college basketball season.
yeah, because the way I see it with UConn, I'm not surprised they blew Purdue out because throughout the from the first round up until now, they were blowing everybody out through the water. It was just they were like shark through a prey, just eating all the tiny little fish inside the ocean. And then when it got to the big fish, or sharks like them, they end up eating them alive. So I really wasn't surprised, but I could say that like this is like will go down as one of the best UConn teams that we've seen because their roster, I was really paying attention to them throughout the whole season, especially with Tristan Newton. I really like him a lot. Like his game, I just like him. I like Cam Spencer. I like Castle. I like all those guys on that team, and they're just well balanced. Like they could beat you anywhere they want. If they want to story from deep, they could story from deep. If they want to story from the mid range, they could do that. If they want to attack you down low, constantly aggressive with their big men, they could do that. And they got a lot of up and coming players off the bench. They're gonna do their thing. But the one thing that really was like really happy for me was you saw Bobby Hurley, who's a like you saw um his dad, who's also a legend in New Jersey high school basketball. Then you had his son was playing, and then you had the previous son who also played in the league too. Like you saw all three generations. You saw Bobby Hurt, you saw Hurley, you saw it's like St. Anthony's head coach, then you saw Dan Hurley, UConn coach, the generation after his pops. And then you had his son, who is the next generation. He's around my age. So that was kind of like a bittersweet moment for me. And then as for the women's game, I did enjoy. I like this thing. I'll say is South Carolina. I said in my own podcast as well. You ever notice how nobody was ever mentioned in South Carolina's team, Don Staley squad, and they went undefeated. They went what 37-0, undefeated in conference play, and you got
38,
one of the best
yeah.
coaches. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm.
Just your main takeaways from that because
Yeah,
he
I
got
think
disrespected.
I know. I think listen, I'm so excited for the future for women's sports. I think that we're in a really great time where it's growing tremendously. There are so many more shows and networks and even on social media and people talking about it, covering it. And I'm glad to see, Caitlin Clark, for example, who she really did do so much for the game. Prolific scorer, broke all these records, phenomenal college career. And unfortunately, I think it did also remind us that the way that we cover and talk about sports is not always we're not including everybody. How do you have an undefeated team where they had South Carolina who had all a whole new starting five? Everybody was drafted into the WNBA last year. They run it back with the same squad and do better this year, win the championship, and as we all know, go undefeated in doing so. And a big part of that is you have players like Malaysia and Tessa who are freshmen who are also having career highs in their best performances in the national championship. It's not even like they're doing it with just seniors and the Camila Cardoso. So the balance that they have and so many different players that can contribute, the depth. That's why I feel like for UConn and for South Carolina, from the men's and women's side, those two teams are hard to beat because at the end of the day, winning a championship, it's great to have those superstar Caitlin Clark type players, or looking at across the board, you can name for different teams, different Zach Edey. There's different players that jump out at you off the paper, but when you have a team that can run the floor, crash the board, score in a number of different ways, be able to move the ball well, defend well, and then on top of that, you have if it's not one player, it's another player that's scoring or getting a hot hand. That's usually what makes the difference in winning championships. So I think for Dawn Staley, Philly native, love to see her continuous impact on the game. For the South Carolina to be able to be a team that surprised people. A lot of people had Iowa winning the championship. And I get it. Caitlin Clark and Iowa, they did their thing. Kudos to them. They really put this program in a different level, back-to-back runs to the championship, falling short in both seasons, but still getting there, which is incredible. Still seeking that first national championship. Either way, it was fun basketball. It was great to see. I didn't have a specific team. I didn't really care who won. I just wanted to see great basketball, and we got that for both the men's and women's sides. But it just was fun to see South Carolina really demand that respect because even with them being undefeated, even with them winning the national championship, we still have seen a lot of times people are talking about Caitlin Clark lost versus South Carolina winning. There's a narrative there that is important that you have to give them the respect they deserve. And it's a shame to see, but I think more people are at least, I feel like we're in the day and age where people don't sweep things under the rug. We're calling things out, we're making it known. South Carolina deserves the respect. UConn deserves their respect. When you win a national championship, you need to be put on a different level. And I am glad that I'm seeing more and more people of all different backgrounds speaking up and making sure that like no, we're not gonna have Caitlin Clark be the face of all promotion of the championship game. They lost. It needs to be South Carolina. Like you have to have
Yes.
the winning team be the team that's being featured in articles and posts and updates and storylines. So I think we are seeing a change where not only are more people talking about it, but in general, more people are speaking up about it. In the fact it's not a black versus white thing. It shouldn't be a male versus female thing. But we're gonna call it out and make sure that everybody's getting the respect they deserve. And if you're not, we're gonna call that out too.
Yes. So yes, I do like your points though. You got some amazing points. Like Miss Washington, you do got a lot of points. But the Caitlin Clark, I mean, you basically said everything, a generational scorer. But I just feel like that as the years go on, we're gonna remember as a generational player, an all-time great in all of basketball and college sports, but just did not win the big one, especially two of them, LSU and South Carolina. And then I see some people make excuses for them, saying that they went up against a better team. She had nobody there, which she had other talent on the Iowa team. Iowa was loaded in their own right. Problem was they just went up against a team that's even way better than them. There's no shame in that. And plus, also had the fact that all the comments towards Angel Reese was just toxic. I mean, let me just say that the comments that I seen would just tell me everything I needed to know about that. Like they were just saying that she was more like an a-hole, this, that, and the third, cocky. And I'm saying, well, when you're that good of an athlete, especially elite, there's gonna be some arrogance, a little bit cocky in you. Like it's just bound to happen. It's not just in basketball, it's just all around in sports. It's just bound to happen. It's gonna be a little bit there. Now, unless you're not like doing it a little too much, then okay, I can see where you're going with that. But I'm just saying, like all the comment search, Angel Reese was just absolutely insane, especially after the game for the most part. Just saying that oh, she got humble, which I mean, I guess maybe you could say a little bit, but not that much. But Angel Reese, I mean, she's Angel Reese. I really not seen much on her, but I did an episode on my podcast, on an individual one. I said that she just didn't deserve all the hate. These are some, maybe a little bit, but that's it. Not a lot of hate because literally LSU is a really good team. And I saw just all them comments. They were just absolutely insane. They were saying everything in the book. I don't know if you catch it, but it was this one reporter
Yeah.
from the LA Times. I mean, he called him dirty. He said like a sexist
Mm-hmm.
comment towards him, which that literally had me shaking my head, saying, "How is this guy not fired?" You know what I'm saying? Like, how is he not fired? Like, I'm trying to figure it out. How is he still not fired? Which still has me shaking my head in every way imaginable. And as for South Carolina, just complete disrespect because all you heard this year is three teams: LSU, Iowa, UConn. South Carolina,
Right.
I heard of them. And even then, like their size was their biggest one. Like their size really just had a lot of issues for Iowa, and they really had no idea how to defend that. Which I was watching that game a lot. Like their size was just too much for them, and they really had no answer for South Carolina. And also their freshman, I believe her name was what, Tessa Johnson. Did I get her name wrong? Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
No, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had like what 19, 17 points, but she shot a lot like coming off the bench. She's a freshman too, which is absolutely incredible when looking back on it. Like she did all that while coming off the bench, and almost everybody did their role. But I'm just glad that like South Carolina they're now getting the full recognition because I mean, how you go undefeated in both conference play and in the tournament, in which during the season they almost lost some games, but they managed to persevere, and yet going into the tournament, it was saying that yeah, we're talking about the Iowa, we're talking about the LSU, we're talking about the UConns. Oh, South Carolina. Hello, how you doing? Next, stuff like that. And now she got three, and now you can put her as one of the best all-time women's head coaches of all time. Now I can't make a whole list on that because I want to get more informed on that. I'm really gonna take the time to really get my information on that known, but I do know a little bit about it, just a little about women's basketball, a little bit, not too much, but just being honest with myself. But now I just want to talk about the NWSL. It's for the Gotham FC. I believe it's a women's soccer league, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I want to mainly just talk about just the Gotham FC going into their season, just their preview, just what's going on with their team so far. I just need more informed, that's why. I just need more informed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so Gotham is coming off of winning the NWSL SL championship last year. Their first time ever winning the championship. The league itself has been growing tremendously, and it's been much like we talk about in college basketball. It's been the same thing in women's soccer, where there's been increases in ratings and ticket sales and viewership and even just people excited about it, talking about it. And so Gotham is a top team. They've been able to bring in a lot of talent in this offseason on top of winning a championship last year. They brought in a lot of talent from the women's national team. You know, someone like Rose Lavelle, Crystal Dunn. These are players that are everyday starters on the women's national team that they now have, in addition to already having someone like Lynn Williams. It's great to see. Unfortunately, one of their better goal scorers, Midge Purce, just tore her ACL, so she's out for the year. But they do still have, a lot throughout, whether from goalkeeper all the way forward. And it's a really fun group to watch because they were just 2 years ago worst in the league. And they went from worst in the league in 2022 to winning the championship in 2023 to now in 2024 also being already, as the season just has gotten started a couple weeks ago, a top team to watch across the league. They've won hardware in international play, and it's been fun to see their growth as well as the growth of the league overall.
Okay, I do. That's actually pretty interesting. I think they're the
Oh, it's
team that I
awesome.
heard some people talking about last year, but I didn't take the time to pay close attention to it because I try to know other sports as well besides basketball and football. I do know a little bit about baseball. I'm trying to get more in on that, but I'm just gonna be honest, at times, baseball kind of make me go to sleep at times. Not all the time, but at times baseball could just be like, can I take my eye off for 1 minute? Oh look, home run. But actually, I could say that could really overall just end the discussion there. I do appreciate you for coming on here and thank you very much. Thank you.